Welcome inside the vault. This is a collection of previously unreleased lessons from eight-figure entrepreneurial mastermind RJon Robins. And in case you didn't see the warning label, this content can be explicit, and it is for serious entrepreneurs only. In this lesson from the July 2023 live quarterly meeting with members of How to Manage a Small Law Firm, RJon tackles the mental barriers that typically hold back personal and business growth. And when we recognize that our business and personal lives are in constant flux and they require continuous adaptation, we place ourselves in a better position to maintain an open, growth-driven mindset. Let's go to the vault.
Working with RJon is like having a shortcut to future you.
Every time I can have an opportunity to spend time with RJon, I try to take it and be a sponge.
I thought everyone was crazy. You know, they were running to the front of the stage to see this person. RJon's wearing his crazy shirt.
You know, he drinks tiger blood in the morning just for fun, and he's like breathing down my throat.
Sometimes it's terrifying to work with him. It's like he's looking into your soul, but it's growth the whole way.
Our definition of success, remember, is a business that serves you financially, a business that serves you personally, and a business that serves you professionally. And what I mean by professionally is it allows you to do work that matters to you, meaningful work that makes a difference in the world in a way that you're going to be proud of, that you're going to leave behind after you're gone, you know, on your last days. So the question I've got for you, and it's a serious question, is how much longer are you going to keep letting your future get held hostage by your past? And that's really what we're here to talk about today. And the exercises we've got planned are really designed to help you break through a lot of your bullshit. Some of these live quarterly meetings are mostly mechanical, how to do this, how to do that. Some of them are really mostly how to fix what's going on up here, because the way you think about things, how you're thinking about what you're doing, it's having a huge impact on the results you're getting. And some of you already know that, and some of you are kind of resisting it. So the question really is, how much longer will you keep letting your future be held hostage by your past? Now, I want you to take a moment and just take a moment and think about all the dumb shit you've done in the past. They're saying I need more than a moment. Take a moment and think about some of, I didn't say take a exhaustive inventory. Just think about some of the dumb shit you've done in the past. Can anyone here not have a long list of dumb shit you've done in the past? No? And now, sincerely, all joking aside, this isn't like a trick. I want you to just like close your eyes, picture that person, okay? Picture their face, maybe with a few less lines on it, their hair with a little less gray in it, or more of it, what they're dressed like, the look in their eyes. They've got something in their eyes that you probably don't have anymore. And that person was making a lot of mistakes, a lot of decisions that person thought made sense. That person thought were the right decisions. And now you can say this out loud if it helps. You can reach out and touch them on the shoulder if you want, and just forgive them. I forgive you. Take a deep breath and just do it. Okay? You can open your eyes. You feel better? Raise your hand if you feel a little better. Good. Now I want you to consider that you look at your hands, touch yourself. You, the person you are today, you are an idiot. I'm an idiot too. The difference is some of us know that we are idiots, and it sets us free. It sets us free to make millions and millions and millions of dollars. And it sets us free to have extraordinary control over our time and tremendous options over who we choose to work with, where we choose to work with those people, the terms under which we choose to work with those people. And I mean in terms of clients, in terms of vendors, in terms of employees, and embracing how much we don't know. Because we can't know it, it sets us free to make moves that make a difference in our lives. Whereas there's a lot of people who have a hard time hearing the words, "You're an idiot." There's someone in this room probably who's getting ready to quit right now because they're like, "How dare you?" And they're probably like they're preparing their social media posts. "This asshole got on stage and called us all idiots." They'll leave out the part that I had a whole lesson around it. There was context. I acknowledge I'm an idiot too, but you can't talk to someone who's triggered. Anyway, the point that I'm making is it will liberate you when you really embrace how little you know about the future. Because what most people do is they sit there and they don't want to look like an idiot. I mean, does anyone want to look like an idiot? I don't want to look like an idiot. No one wants to look like an idiot. I simply accept and acknowledge that through the lens of time, looking back at my past self looks like an idiot. Through the lens of time, my future self is looking back at me today and thinking, "You idiot. How did you not know? Why didn't you do? Why couldn't you stop? Wasn't it obvious?" Yeah? But what people do, and don't applaud, not a big thing. We can think of it next quarter. This is our 49th live quarterly meeting in a row. You can applaud next time when we get to 50. It'll be a party. We'll have fun. This is our 49th live quarterly meeting in a row. And, we're working with the designers to get everything ready for the next live quarterly meeting. And I'm going back and I'm looking at pictures of myself, and I'm looking at venues that we hosted, and I'm looking back at topics that we've covered and lessons that we've taught. And I'm actually really, really, really proud of how well the majority of those lessons and how well that catalog stands up today in terms of relevance and applicability and practicality. And that's because I've never been following fads. I've never watched what other people do and copy them. I just do proven, practical things that have always worked because I study history. Like I've studied the history of the legal industry dating back to ancient Roman times. Did you know that lawyers were starting marketing, managing, buying, selling law firms 1,000 years ago? This isn't new. There's very little that we're doing today that's particularly new. We use new tools, we use new technology, we dress different, we get around in different ways, but the laws haven't changed that much in 1,000 years. Does everyone recognize that? No, you don't recognize that? You do recognize that? You're not quite sure? Go back and look at Old Testament Leviticus, put it against modern day bankruptcy code, It's the same. Laws haven't changed that much, everyone. I'm sorry to break it to you, but the human species hasn't gotten that much better in 1,000 years, right? For 1,000 years, we've been fucking up our relationships the same way. We've been doing business together the same way. We've been looking for shelter the same way. We've been trying to give our children a better future, better education. We've been trying to build relationships, and the laws haven't really changed that much. Human beings haven't really changed that much in 1,000 years. Anyway, I digress. The point I'm making is I'm really proud of that library of content. When I look back, though, at these 49 live quarterly meetings, when I look back at the first live quarterly meeting we did back in 2011, I think it was 2011, I mean, the dumb shit, the things I didn't know, I mean, just, it's embarrassing. But the thing is, you got to be willing to be embarrassed. You got to be willing to be wrong. You got to be willing to look like an idiot. Because what's the alternative? And I don't mean that as a rhetorical question. I want you to really think about what's the alternative to looking like an idiot from the vantage point enough years in the future. What's the alternative? Someone called out no growth. That's the alternative. But you know what makes you look like if you don't grow for 10 years? You look like an idiot. So either way, any way you try it, reality is reality, right? And in reality, we're all going to look like idiots in some way, shape, or form when we look back at ourselves today from enough time in the future, right? We're all going to look like misogynistic, racist, petty, self-destructive idiots. Because 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, values will change, society will change, terminology will change, and words that we use today that are politically correct today will be out of vogue, and someone will say, how dare they? I can't believe they used to use that word. Or, I can't believe they used to, drink and drive. You know that in the 1950s, luxury cars, like luxury Cadillacs and Lincolns, one of the options that you had was a minibar that actually fit into the glove compartment with a logo of the car, and the glove compartment door would open down, and there'd be like a little spot for your crystal tumblers. And this was a thing. I mean, this was a thing. And people thought it was great, right? Now you're like, oh, what are you, insane? There was a time when people literally thought that smoking was good for you. They literally thought smoking was good for you. And you're like, how could they have possibly thought that? That makes no sense. Well, it makes no sense to us today. They look like idiots. Sugar. Sugar was once prescribed as a medicine. Sugar like breaks down and destroys your cellular body. Is like practically the worst thing you can possibly put into your body. I say this with a cup of coffee full of sugar. But it's true, right? There will come a time where we look back at everything today, and a lot of it, we're going to look like idiots. And the problem is, people try to avoid this. And the most common strategy for smart people to try to avoid this, and this is the problem, is we're all really smart people. You're all really smart people, right? Smart and idiot are not mutually exclusive. You're all really smart people. And so you think that you can figure it out. I'm really smart. I should be able to figure this out. I should be able to read enough books. I should be able to take enough courses. I should be able to figure out how to avoid being judged by the future as an idiot for some of the dumb shit that I'm going to do today because based on today's information, based on everything I can possibly do, the very best decision that I can make now will, in retrospect, look stupid. Yeah? And as soon as you embrace how little you know, it frees you to just make decisions, make decisions, make decisions, make decisions, make decisions. I've grown this business by I don't know how many thousand, I think it was something like 10,000%. I've grown this business. Just making mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. The secret, if you will, to how I've been able to do this is not because I'm any smarter than any of you. I suspect many of you are probably smarter than me. I didn't get the best grades in school. I don't have the best credentials. I just make a lot more mistakes much faster. I make more mistakes in the average quarter than most people make in 10 years because I'm not worried about looking like an idiot because I've accepted it's inevitable. You get what I'm saying here? Okay. The exercises we have in store for you this weekend are going to be a little tough for some of you. Some of you are going to be laughing. It's going to be fun. It's going to be entertaining. Hopefully, it'll give you a lot of insight. But some of you, it's going to be really tough because you're going to have to kind of face up to the fact that you are an idiot just like the rest of us. And a lot of people, their ego doesn't like that kind of thing. I'm not asking you to raise your hand, but you know who you are. You can laugh out loud if you want to.
If this episode is resonating with you, click the link in the show notes below to learn more about the upcoming 5-week business plan bootcamp. Yes, this is a free virtual bootcamp, which means seats are limited in order to provide personal attention and laser coaching. Click the link below and turn this podcast episode into an actionable business plan to grow your law firm. And now, back to the show.
All right. The topic of this live quarterly meeting is, the title I should say, is creative destruction. There is no such thing as the status quo, right? The status quo is a legal fiction. It doesn't exist in reality. There is no status quo in nature. Every single thing in this universe is either growing or dying. It's not sitting still. There's no such thing as the status quo, right? So your business is falling apart right now. And you're putting it back together. And it's falling apart, and you're putting it back together. And it's falling apart, and you're putting it back together. And some of you are thinking to yourself, this is the worst coaching program ever. Why can't you show me how to prevent my business from falling apart? And the answer is because that's not reality. See, there are some people out there who want to tell you that they can teach you how to do something that isn't real because they want you to buy it from them. But it's not real. And I'm telling you, the reality is your business is falling apart. And every time it falls apart, you put it back together. And something breaks, and you put it back together. And something falls off, and you put it back together. The problem is how you're putting it back together. So the Ship of Theseus is a philosophical exercise. The idea is that there's this old wooden ship, the Ship of Theseus. Theseus, who battled the Minotaur and all that. But the Ship of Theseus. And the idea is there's a piece of wood on this ship that rots out, because that's what happens when you put wood in water. It rots out, and so they take the rotten plank out of the ship, and they put a new plank in the ship. And then they take another plank out of the ship, and they put a new plank into the ship. And then the steering wheel breaks, so they take the steering wheel off, and they put a new steering wheel on the ship. And then the sail wears out, and they take the sail off, and they put a new sail on the ship. And then another plank rots, and they take that plank out, and they put a new plank in. And then the mast cracks, and they take the mast out, and they put in a new mast. And eventually, there's not one single piece of that ship which is the same piece as when the ship was first launched however many years ago. You with me? So the philosophical question is it still the same ship? is it still the Ship of Theseus when there's not one single piece of the ship remaining from when the ship was originally launched? All right? Think about your car. If you take off and change a tire and you put on a new tire, and then you replace another tire, and then you replace the transmission, and then you replace the windshield, and then you change the upholstery, and then maybe you rebuild and replace the engine, and then maybe you repaint the car, and then maybe it gets into a little fender bender and you replace some of the bodywork. Is it still the same car? Right? Still has the same title, still has the same insurance policy. The problem is you keep rebuilding your Ship of Theseus and then bitching about how much you don't like it. Your Ship of Theseus doesn't have a bathroom. And you keep complaining, this ship has no bathroom, this sucks. So what do? You keep rebuilding the same Ship of Theseus without a bathroom, complaining the whole time that it doesn't have a bathroom. You do that long enough and you look back at it and you realize you're an idiot because you spent 10 years waking up every day rebuilding the life you don't want. And your future is being held hostage by your past because it's what you've done and what you've done and what you've done. So you keep waking up and doing the same thing again and again and again. There's not one reason why every single one of you can't wake up tomorrow morning and say, fuck it, and do something completely different with your life. You don't have to keep practicing law. You don't have to live in the same city that you live in today. You don't have to drive the same car. You don't have to stay married to the same person. You don't have to wear the same clothes. You can change everything in your life. Now, by the way, I'm not saying you should change everything in your life. I'm saying you can change everything in your life. And since everything in your life is actively falling apart, your marriages are falling apart, your body is falling apart, your business is falling apart, your house is falling apart, your car is falling apart, your relationships are falling apart. Everything's falling apart. Don't you get this? Right? Now, if you ignore this, what happens is they fall apart until it gets to the point where it's completely irredeemable and the Ship of Theseus becomes a pile of junk. But if you're maintaining it, you maintain it and you put it back together, and you maintain it and you put it back together, and you take your spouse out for a date night, and you take a vacation, and you get a new roof on your house, and you change the oil in your car, and you take your kids on, a scheduled play date once a quarter instead of just leaving it as an afterthought, like they're less important than everything else in your life. Hint, hint. The problem is, if you don't do it with intention, you wind up rebuilding that same Ship of Theseus again and again and again.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for more lessons from the vault.